Adam Taxin here on Friday, May 25th, 2012 with Daniel Greenfield's Friday Afternoon Roundup Spot the Narrative. It starts with a graphic which has full coverage. It's a graphic that says full coverage at the top and it has these headlines. Catholics' lawsuit against Obama is blind to current contraceptive coverage. And that's from the Star Ledger of New Jersey. Then it has Bishops back Catholic Conference lawsuit. Public not convinced. That's the Royal Oaks Daily Tribune. Then from Kansas.com, both sides are wrong in lawsuits by Catholics. Then the Palm Beach Post's headline, is Catholic group's lawsuit against health law political? Then the Minneapolis Star Tribune says Catholic bishops disagree over lawsuit. And then the Huffington Post says Obama birth control mandate, Catholic bishops divided on legal battle. And then it says, there is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. For the next hour, sit quietly, and we will control all that you see and hear. After that, Greenfield writes, wouldn't it be terrible if we lived in some kind of dictatorship where a tiny group of powerful men controlled the broadcast media and used it to justify abuses of power by the government? Isn't it great that we live in a country where we don't have to worry about that kind of thing? Yeah, me too. All right, the first main section is the narrative. It all starts with the narrative. Coverage of the lawsuits can be minimized as much as possible, but sooner or later, they have to be reported on. The media is as lazy as it is corrupt and stupid, so they usually garner their talking points from liberal talking point distributors like Think Progress and Media Matters. The narrative on the Catholic lawsuits is problematic because it's a clear case of religious freedom being infringed on. That means this problematic fact has to be countered by talking point 1, the lawsuit isn't religious, it's political. Talking point 2, the lawsuit isn't from the Catholic Church, but from a small group of extremist bishops. Talking point 3, most Catholics love abortion, and the Catholic Church is out of step with modern American Catholics. Talking point 4, both sides need to compromise. Obama has already faked a compromise. Now the Catholic Church needs to give in. Talking point number 5, molestation. You can see all 4 talking points in just the headlines of the news stories on the screenshot above. I didn't choose this screenshot. These are the first listed stories, which also tells you something. You have to click outside to find the 5th one, but it's there. It's pretty sad when the propaganda is not only this obvious, and even sadder when you don't even need to read past the headline to see it. This shows how much contempt the media has for us and for its own profession. This isn't between-the-lines stuff. This is talking point headlines. It's the journalism equivalent of a cop selling crack to crack babies. It's at such a level of treason to one's own integrity and professionalism that there's nowhere lower to go except printing actual press releases without altering a word. I'll even go you one worse. Only one of the outlets listed is the Huffington Post, and it has the mildest headline of the bunch. What does it tell you when HuffPo looks moderate compared to the Newark Star Ledger or the Palm Beach Post? 3 words. Cancel your subscription. Don't take out ads in these papers. Kick the propagandists out into the cold, hard new media world. If the Obama administration is going to have a propaganda arm, it should be the one paying them out of its campaign coffers. Orthodox Jews are the new Catholics. That's the next section. Ever since Orthodox Jews took a public stand against gay marriage in the New York State election for governor, and then in the battle for Wiener's seat and SD-27 seat that Lou Fidler lost to a Russian Jewish Republican, which in true Democratic fashion the Democrats are trying to steal anyway, there suddenly seems to be a rash of attacks. It's almost as if Orthodox Jews are getting the Catholic treatment. There are now constant stories accusing the Orthodox Jewish community of being a gang of pedophiles. Here's a snapshot of the media coverage, and the graphic says, for Orthodox Jews, for ultra-Orthodox and abuse cases, prosecutor has different rules, and that's from the New York Times. Then the New York Magazine has, ultra-Orthodox Jews still have a sex crime problem. Huffington Post, ultra-Orthodox Jews shun their own for reporting child sexual assumedly abuse. It's an ellipsis there. Then jdjournal.com, ultra-Orthodox Jews systematically intimidate victims of child abuse. Then Greenfield writes, who knew Goebbels was still around? The parallels with a similar campaign run against the Catholic Church are a little too obvious. While stories on Muslims spin positive, Orthodox Jews are being hit with an aggressive smear campaign. Come out against gay marriage and for traditional values, and suddenly Anderson Cooper is screeching that you're all a bunch of pedophiles. While the media refuses to discuss jihad, it turned Deborah Feldman, a compulsive liar, into a media star for a string of lies attacking Orthodox Jews. While her 15 minutes are long up, CNN just ran an op-ed from Feldman trying to jump on the pedophile bandwagon. This is now the narrative. Any mainstream media coverage of Orthodox Jews will now have a sidebar accusing them of not coming to terms with the, quote, sex crime problems. People like Feldman will be kept around to pop out of the box and provide a quote for the occasion. The New York Times already uses people like Shmarya Rosenberg as their source for information about the Orthodox Jewish community. That would be like using Christopher Hitchens as their source on Catholics or Wafa Sultan as their source on the Muslim community, which no liberal... This is hard-coded bias, and it's a message. Just like the redistricting aimed at ending Orthodox Jewish political representation. You don't get this kind of treatment for carrying out multiple terrorist attacks in America. You do get it for refusing to accept men marrying each other in public ceremonies. Liberals were willing to mostly ignore Orthodox Jews, so long as they didn't challenge liberals' hegemony. But now it's a new ballgame. Next section. This is your brain on liberalism. Studies show that New Yorkers' approval for Mayor Bloomberg goes up when they forget that he exists. It goes down whenever he opens his mouth to express exactly the kind of ideas that you expect from an out-of-touch billionaire. Bloomberg, for those who have been spending time in the real world and forget that he exists, has been on a campaign to bring issues, that's in quotes, to the attention of the establishment and get past all that partisan bickering, which usually means ramming through policies so liberal even Obama won't touch them. The report noted that Canada allows its provinces to set different immigration standards to attract the type of employees each region needs. The mayor quickly endorsed a similar proposal for U.S. states, and then some. There's no reason why you have to have a common immigration policy for all of America, he argued. You could let each state do it differently. I would argue that the federal government should go one step further. They should deliberately force some places that don't want immigrants to take them, because that's the only solution for these big, hollowed-out cities where industry has left and is never going to come back unless you get some people to move there. There's a break here from an almost sensible proposal to let states run their own immigration policy. It's not really sensible because immigrants can just enter states that are immigrant-friendly and move to other states, and all it takes is one open borders state to flood the country. But Bloomberg doesn't actually seem to understand that proposal. Instead, Bloomberg uses a proposal that states control their own immigration policy as a jumping-off point to proposing that the government forcibly ship immigrants to states that don't want them. Who exactly benefits from this arrangement except the Democratic Party? Do states benefit from having people they don't want forced on them? Do immigrants benefit from going to places that don't want them? What's the point of punitive immigration except to make people like Bloomberg feel good about themselves? Also, don't we already have this exact policy? It's called federally mandated affordable housing. If you aren't building it, your town is guilty of racism, discrimination, hate crimes, crimes against humanity, and other fun stuff. Bloomberg caused a ruckus last year during an appearance on Meet the Press, on which he proposed opening the door to immigrants on the condition that they agree to live in Detroit for 5 to 10 years, restoring that struggling city by starting new businesses. Does this really make Detroit a better place or a worse place? Is Detroit's problem that it doesn't have enough people on welfare? Next section. Ori Litzedek hate group still hating. I wrote briefly about Ori Litzedek and Elisheva Goldberg 2 weeks ago in my piece on them. Ori Litzedek is a radical left group targeting the Orthodox Jewish community, intimidating small businesses, and trying to get its, quote, inspectors in all over the place. Elisheva Goldberg is the, quote, Reish Beit Midrash there. She's a radical left-wing activist who works for Peter Beinart and conducts anti-Israel activism at the Open Zion blog. The Ori Litzedek website makes no secret of her other job and clearly supports her activities there. Goldberg's job is generating attacks on Israel as an illegitimate racist settler state, etc. You know the drill. She celebrated Yom Yerushalayim with a rant about Greater Israel. A Jewish school is attacked for not promoting the terrorist perspective. It's just nonstop hate and lies. A typical example is Goldberg lying and claiming that Netanyahu tells American audiences one thing in English and another thing in Hebrew. She claims that Netanyahu tells American audiences that he will give up Yerushalayim, but tells Israeli audience in secret Jew speak, and then TM is in parentheses, aka Hebrew, that he wouldn't. Clearly, this is a major breaking story. Elisheva Goldberg unknotted her keffiyeh and, as a knower of Jew speak, rushed to transcribe Netanyahu's secret remarks in Jew speak, where he said such things as, "I will continue to say to them that Jerusalem will remain forever the united capital of the state of Israel and the united capital of the people of Israel." Shocking stuff. The great investigative journalists at Open Zion had uncovered that Netanyahu secretly supports an undivided Jerusalem. And by secretly, I mean he says it all the time. It was the opening to his 2012 speech at AIPAC in English. And this is the quote. "Thank you for the warm reception. It could be heard as far away as Jerusalem, the eternal and united capital of Israel." And even more covertly, Netanyahu said it at a speech at the UN. Here's what the speech was. "I often hear them accuse Israel of Judaizing Jerusalem. That's like accusing America of Americanizing Washington, or the British of Anglicizing London. You know why we're called Jews, because we come from Judea. In my office in Jerusalem, there's an ancient seal. It's a signet ring of a Jewish official from the time of the Bible. The seal was found right next to the Western Wall, and it dates back 2,700 years, to the time of King Hezekiah. Now, there's a name of the Jewish official inscribed on the ring in Hebrew. His name was Netanyahu. That's my last name. My first name, Benjamin, dates back 1,000 years earlier to Benjamin, the son of Jacob, who was also known as Israel. Jacob and his 12 sons roamed these same hills of Judea and Samaria 4,000 years ago. And there's been a continuous Jewish presence in the land ever since. As for those Jews who were exiled from our land, they never stopped dreaming of coming back. Jews in Spain on the eve of their expulsion, Jews in the Ukraine fleeing the pogroms, Jews fighting the Warsaw Ghetto as the Nazis were circling around it. They never stopped praying, they never stopped yearning. They whispered, "Next year in Jerusalem, next year in the Promised Land." It's right here in English. No double secret translation necessary. We are often told that Arabs say different things to domestic and international audiences. In fact, they are notorious in pro-Israel circles for doing so. But yesterday, Bibi showed us that Israelis are guilty of exactly the same thing. That's what Elisheva Goldberg claims. What she proves is that Israelis say what they mean. But Elisheva Goldberg and Peter Beinart lie compulsively, just like the Islamic terrorists who benefit from their advocacy. But this isn't about one of Beinart's anti-Israel trolls. It's about ORIOL and the kind of people who play leading roles in them. If you are uncomfortable with Elisheva Goldberg's Israel bashing, then you should also be uncomfortable with ORIOL and any restaurant that uses their Tav HaYosher seal. And you should tell the owner that. The end.